All right, I'll just get started. I like to start on time. I want to welcome all our attendees, including our first timers and our returning members and regulars. Welcome everyone. We're so happy to see you. I want to recognize our PBNSG staff, Paul Chatlin, founder of PBNSG and face of an amazing inspirational story of going from nearly dying to strong, vibrant, and healthy through a plant-based lifestyle. I want to recognize Marion Treese, our administrative director, Lisa Smith, executive director, and Brett Nyquist, our director of technology. As Paul likes to say, we are together as one, and we have the same passion towards helping others find success in this plant-based lifestyle. For those that don't know me, who are new, my name is Megan Burt, and I'm Director of Support Groups for PBNSG. I've been living a plant-based lifestyle for over 14 years now, and my primary role with PBNSG is to help support hosts and members of small groups find success and celebrations with their plant-based lifestyles. I have a 5-year-old plant-based toddler, and I was just sharing that with Adam, our presenter, that he right now is eating coconut curry dal with spinach and kale, lentil quinoa soup, tofu, and broccoli and tomatoes for dinner. His food is fuel, and his energy, health, strength is my daily inspiration to educate and support others, particularly families with young ones. Nothing excites me more than helping pave the way for this plant-based movement and hearing the success stories and positive effects that result from this way of life. For those that are new, most of you already know, but for those that are new, PBNSG stands for Plant-Based Nutrition Support Group, and we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to evidence-based education and advocacy of a plant-based whole foods nutrition to help individuals prevent and reverse chronic disease and achieve optimal health. I want to let everyone know that PBNSG is in the process of creating an online learning platform called PBNSGU, and it will be available later in 2021. And then don't forget to visit our website for new recipes. Our shop page has amazing t-shirts and aprons and different paraphernalia. You can ask our physician and dietitian questions through your portal, and check out our Perfectly Plant-Based Cookbook. It makes a fantastic gift. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking ahead to August, and then I will set off the event with Adam, who's here with us. On August 5th, we have Anthony Evans. He's an inspirational speaker with an incredible life story who will share his journey from having a genetic disorder and aggressive cancer to a life of health and happiness. On August 12th, we have our free monthly community support group meeting with Michael Smith, and the topic is heart health. That's free for anyone, so share with your family and friends or anyone who might want to attend. It gives them a taste of what PBNSG is all about. And then August 19th, Anthony Disson, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and lifestyle medicine educator. And then August 26th, Dr. Neil Barnard. So most of you are familiar with that name, so that's really something to look forward to. He will discuss the new science of food, hormones, and health. So on to our feature presentation. We have Adam Sudd as he presents Plant-Based Addict, a journey from pills to plants. Adam Sudd is going to share his remarkable story with us and discuss the truth about addiction and behavior change. In 2012, Adam Sudd's life was completely out of control. Once weighing nearly 350 pounds and struggling with multiple addictions, serious chronic diseases, and mental health disorders, his life came to nearly an end when he nearly attempted suicide from drug overdose. He checked into rehab, and with the help of his parents and a plant-based diet, he began a journey that led to a remarkable recovery, reversing all of his chronic diseases and getting off all of his medications, including the psych meds, within 1 year and losing 180 pounds. He has a presentation for us today. I'm really looking forward to myself. And once I give him the floor, I will type in his Instagram, Facebook, GoFundMe research study, and his website that you can access anytime during the presentation, and when you come back to the recording, that will be in your portal. So thank you, Adam. You are officially on the floor, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Let me optimize this for video. Here we go. And hit this. Can you all see my screen?
I can see your screen. Okay,
fantastic. Let me just do this over here. Move this up. Perfect. So my name is Adam Sudd. She so kindly, she gave a great introduction. I really appreciate that. I'm happy to be here. I want to share with you all my journey. And I use the title Pills to Plants because it's catchy, right? It's attractive sounding, it gets everybody in the room, right? But it's really a journey from shame to love. This is a human story. And I want to start at the beginning. So this is my family. I am a 7th generation Texan. I'm also a Jew, which means that I grew up eating burgers and barbecue and bagels and blintzes. It's something I like to call the standard American diet, wearing cowboy boots with some chutzpah. And I had a fantastic childhood. That is my dad in the middle, also known as Borat before he was famous. Just that's a joke. He's not the actor that played Borat. That's my mom on the right. My twin brother is on the right side. I'm on the left side, and that's my younger sister, Jewel. I have just the most incredible parents. My dad taught me how to play sports, and I mean every sport: baseball, basketball, football. He was actually the all-time quarterback for all of the street football games between me and my neighborhood friends. My brother and I would ride our bikes to and from school. My mom inspired my imagination, and my little sister Jewel is, well, she's my Jewel. She's my little sister, and she means the world to me. Growing up, there were a few things that profoundly affected my life. I can remember being about 10 years old. Now, this would have been 1992 in the summer in Texas. And in the early 90s in Texas in the summer, when you're 10 years old, you just run around in your bathing suit. That's all you do. And I come running into the house, and my parents stop me and they say, "Whoa, wow, you already have love handles." And this wasn't ill intention. This wasn't like to be mean. I think they were caught off guard. They were trying to bring it. They're like, "Wow." And I didn't know what love handles were. I'm 10 years old. I don't know how you get them. I don't know how you get rid of them. I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad. And so of course I'm asking questions. What are you talking about? They explain it to me, and I mention, oh, so and so's dad has them and so has them. And they say, well, they're in their 40s. You shouldn't have them yet. And it was like, immediately I went from being fully and completely accepting of myself to now believing that there were conditions upon which I could and could not be acceptable. And the reason why I found this so uncomfortable and so terrifying was because, well, if there's one condition, what are the others, and why do I not know what they are? And I quickly became hypervigilant. I was always very aware of how people were looking at me, how people were judging me, if they were judging me, what were they saying? Because I wanted to know, what were these other conditions? Am I enough? Do I meet the requirements of being acceptable to the world? And I can remember I started closet eating at a very young age, where I would run into my bedroom and turn off the lights and close the door, and I'd eat alone in the dark because I was afraid. I was afraid and I was ashamed. See, I knew that I had love handles because I was overweight. And I couldn't stop eating the foods that were in our house that my dad was telling me were causing me to gain weight. And I didn't know why what was so easy for everyone else to seemingly avoid was so very difficult for me. And instead of talking about it and feeling safe about talking about it, I just decided to hide it. And I was so scared that any moment that door was going to open and my parents were going to see what I really was, which was a scared and broken person who was not worthy of their love or acceptance. And that was terrifying. As a 10-year-old, your parents are your entire world. And to be not accepted by your parents feels like you're unacceptable to the whole world. And at about the same time, I was taken to a doctor, and they diagnosed me with ADHD. And so I have a doctor in a white coat whose opinion my parents are respecting. They're looking to hear what they have to say. He is going to tell them more about me. And the doctor is essentially saying to them, there's something else about him that doesn't work properly. Something else that the world doesn't accept and the world doesn't want to be a part of whatsoever. However, for this, we have a solution, and it's called Ritalin. And we're going to have him take it every single day. And if he does this, it will essentially and effectively conceal this unacceptable and a part of him that doesn't work properly. These aren't his exact words, but as a 10, 11, 12-year-old, this is what I hear from the world, from these people, that there's something wrong with me and I better take this pill so that I can hide it from everybody because it's a problem. And if it's a problem, I'm a problem. We moved to Austin, Texas from Houston, Texas, right before I started high school. So I didn't have any friends. I was kind of an awkward, you know what? Look, here's the thing. I know all freshmen are awkward, but I really set a standard here when it comes to this stuff. And so I got bullied a lot my freshman year. And at the time, my prescription for Ritalin had been changed to Adderall. And Adderall is simply another stimulant-based form of medication that is commonly used to treat attention deficit disorder. And I didn't know that at the time that it was also a very popular party and study drug. And once people in my high school learned that I had a prescription for Adderall, all of a sudden, I became a very popular person. A lot of people wanted to be around me. A lot of people wanted me at their parties. And I was under no false pretense. I knew exactly why they wanted to hang out with me. They were asking me straight up, come to the party, bring your Adderall. Come hang out with us, bring your Adderall. Come over here, bring your Adderall. And I was happy to do it. I was happy to do it because what I so desperately wanted was to have anything to offer anyone that allowed me to feel like I belonged somewhere. I wanted to have something of value to offer other people that no one else could offer them, so that there was no threat of me ever being considered unacceptable. And I can remember being at a party. I was a little bit overweight as a freshman in high school. I didn't really have any good study habits, and I was struggling making friends. I was making friends, but I was still getting bullied. And I remember using Adderall for the first time as a recreational drug. And boom, I was immediately hooked to what this stuff did for me. I wasn't hooked on the substance. I was hooked on what it was doing for me, because it seemed to magically fix all of these problems that I had been trying for years to figure out, and with the most unbelievable ease and repeatability. Just by popping a few extra pills, I could solve this seemingly insurmountable problem that I've been facing my entire life. Like I mentioned, I was slightly overweight. Adderall is amphetamine. That's what the stuff is. It's medically pure amphetamine. And so if I take extra amphetamine, my hunger drive goes away and my metabolism goes through the roof. So weight loss is easily achievable. I have unbelievable confidence. I can talk to anybody, and anything that they're talking about is immediately interesting to me. And I had boundless energy. I could stay up all night. I could be the life of the party. You could not out-party me at a party. Period, end of story. Couldn't be done. So I was making friends. I lost the weight. I had girlfriends. My study habits magically got better. What a surprise. Which was amazing, because at the time, my dad and I's relationship was really struggling. See, my dad really was just concerned that I had no study habits, which he was 100% correct about. But once I learned that if I took extra Adderall, I could appear to be the student that he always wanted me to be, it seemed like I was magically becoming the person my dad wanted me to be, the kids at school wanted me to be, the girls at school wanted me to be. Everything seemed to fall into place. So why in the world would I ever want to take less of this stuff if more made me better? And it worked, because I got a scholarship to the college that I wanted to go to, and it felt incredible. It felt incredible to feel like, for the first time in my life, I had figured it out. I had solved it all. And in college, things took a turn, because more became never enough. More became not enough. And not enough became a constant recurring issue in my life. How much do I have left? How long will that last? How am I going to get more? How much is that going to cost? Where am I going to get the money to pay for it? These were the biggest concerns in my life. And what happened was they replaced the most loving and meaningful bonds in my life. How do I feel about myself physically and emotionally? How am I showing up for the people in my life that I want to share value with? What kind of purpose am I trying to connect to within a community of shared respect? What kind of future am I working towards? And what's my connection to myself in the natural world? These important, loving, meaningful bonds seem to sever as the need and focus and attention I was putting on my drug use became more and more and more overwhelming. And so I dropped out of college. I told my parents I just wanted to work in the field that I was studying for a year, take a year off college, that whole thing, which wasn't inherently untrue, but it was not the reason why I left school. I left school to come back to Austin because in Austin, I knew the dealers that I could buy from, and I knew the doctors that I could scam. And that's exactly what I started doing. I started doctor shopping, which is where you have multiple doctors prescribing the same medications without them knowing about it, which is a felony. I was forging prescriptions, which is another felony. I was buying and selling drugs on the street. I would scam or rip you off or do anything to you to get what I needed for me so that I could get my drugs. I was consistently treating my family like absolute garbage. The only time I would interact with these people was to either blame them or shame them for everything that was going wrong in my life because it couldn't be my fault, or to get money and things from them so that I could buy more drugs. That was all I cared about, was what do I have to do without concern for anyone else so that I could get what I need for me. And my life just started to fall apart day by day. I started to isolate. I started to become incredibly depressed. I would run out of drugs really quickly because I was using so much so often. And fast food became an amazing substitute for me when I couldn't get drugs. And there's a quote that says, "Nothing records the effects of a sad life so graphically as the human body." This was me at just over 300 pounds at the time. And when I say I had a problem with fast food, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I would get up every single day and I'd go to a place called Torchy's Tacos, and I'd get 3 potato, egg, and cheese breakfast tacos. Then I'd go right to McDonald's and get 2 supersized double quarter pounder meals, because of course one's not enough. Then I'd go to Whataburger and get the extra large honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich meal. Then for dinner, an extra large pizza from Papa John's with the hamburger toppings, side of chicken strips with a honey mustard dipping sauce. Then go back to Whataburger at about 3 in the morning for 3 of their breakfast on a bun sandwiches with sausage. During the course of the day, I would drink about 15 to 20 sodas. And when I say I was struggling from substance abuse, the average person prescribed Adderall has a prescription of about 10 milligrams for every 24 hours. During this time, I was taking anywhere from 450 to 1,000 milligrams a day, and I would do it for 6 days straight without sleep and without eating. I would do a 6-day drug binge where I would just ingest copious amounts of amphetamines. I would enter the beginning stages of a drug-induced psychosis by day 4, which would begin with developing very debilitating obsessive compulsive tics. One of which was I couldn't stand to feel hair touch my ear for whatever reason. And I can remember one night staying up all night, of course, and brushing my hair forward and back over and over and over and over and over again on the right side of my head. And when I went to the bathroom in the morning and looked in the mirror, I had brushed all the hair completely off the side of my head. And by about day 5, day 6, the obsessive compulsive tics would get so out of control, I would pop a bunch or take a bunch of opiates in order to bring myself down, force myself to fall asleep, wake up the next day completely out of drugs, and start a 2-week binge on fast food. And I would just repeat this cycle over and over and over again. And it was about this time that my dad came to me and he offered me an opportunity to attend one of the very first Engine 2 plant strong immersions with Rip Esselstyn. I'm sure you all have heard of Rip Esselstyn before, but if you haven't, he is the author of the Engine 2 Diet and Plant Strong. He is the executive producer of the film The Game Changers. And in 2010, I had an opportunity to attend a 7-day retreat in Austin, Texas. And I'm going to tell you right now, I had no idea who Rip Esselstyn was. I didn't care who Rip Esselstyn was. I didn't know what a plant-based diet was. I didn't care what a plant-based diet was. The only thing I knew for sure was that if I said yes to my dad and went, I could get him to keep giving me money. That was the only reason I went. And I was high when I went there. I brought drugs with me. And in fact, I found out years later that apparently my appearance and my presence was such a disruption to the other participants and the staff. See, I was very diaphoretic at the time, which means my face would be flushed red. I would sweat through about 2 shirts a day. And I smelled very toxic because I was only ingesting fast food and drugs all the time. And so there were talks about whether or not I was going to be removed from the program. And I know for a fact that one of the reasons why I'm alive today is because Rip Esselstyn and the team made a decision that they would not ask the person who appeared to need it the most to leave. And I wish I could tell you all that I went there and I heard this amazing presentation from Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn and Jeff Novick and Dr. Michael Clapper and Doug Lyle and Ann Esselstyn and Rip Esselstyn. And I heard this message about plant-based nutrition, and boom, 7 days later, I start changing my life. That's what it was. And that's just simply not my story. And the reason why is that it's not that it didn't make sense. It's not that it didn't even strike a chord with me or even touch core values of mine about how I could be healthy and kind to non-human animals. As a person who grew up loving nature, inspired by my grandmother, this was something that really mattered to me. But the reason is because I was not willing to give up what was allowing me to escape a life that was too painful a place to be. I didn't know how to get out of it in any other way. I didn't know how to live any other way than I was living. And to give it all up on the gamble that this would work was too scary and too risky for me. And my life just got worse. And living started to hurt in every sense of the word, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. I started to battle suicidal thoughts. By the time I was 30 years old, I'd already developed erectile dysfunction. I had scratches on my legs from mosquito bites that weren't healing for reasons I didn't understand. And on August 21st, 2012, in this apartment, I just couldn't do it anymore. When you're living under the belief that today is the hardest and most painful your life has ever been, and you're incredibly confident that tomorrow will be more painful than today, eventually, tomorrow is just not something you want to be a part of. So I grabbed a handful of pills and I threw them down my throat. And I've been on the edge of, hang on a second. I've been on the edge of overdose before. I've felt that experience. And this was uniquely different. And I can remember I tried to stand up off the couch and it felt like I got stabbed in the right side with a hot knife. And then my entire right side cramped and I buckled over. And as that happened, I see this black start to fade in. And it was almost as if the universe was requesting that I no longer be a part of it. And I'm going to tell you all that the feeling of dying, and I don't mean the physical feeling that I just described, I mean the actual feeling that I was about to spend the last seconds of my life alone in a hoarder's like apartment, completely disconnected from everyone that ever meant anything to me, was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. And somehow I woke up a few hours later in a puddle of vomit, in a pile of that fast food garbage that you saw in the video, surrounded by empty pill bottles. And I was overcome with this immense feeling of relief. And I was surprised by that feeling. Because, see, what I thought I had just tried to do is I thought I just tried to end my life. So I don't know why I would be relieved to still be here. And that feeling of relief asked me to question what had actually just taken place. The reason why I was relieved was because there must have been something about myself in my life that I loved enough. Something about myself and my life that was meaningful enough that I still wanted to be a part of it all, even though I knew today would be painful. And that suicide is not someone trying to end their life, it's someone trying to end their pain. Someone trying to end a pain they don't understand and they do not know how to deal with on their own. And believe me, I get it. I was the guy. I was that guy that when you walked up to me and said, hey, my dad would say to me, hey, don't you see what you're doing to yourself? Don't you see what's happening? And I would say, you know what? F you. This is how I'm going to live my life. And if it costs me 5 years, fine. 5 years? I mean, let's throw that number out there like it's nothing. 5 years. My goodness, if I had been successful, man, what my parents would do for 5 minutes with me. I mean, 5 seconds would be huge. It's the things that we choose to believe have consequences on ourselves and the people that we care about. And I told myself that I may not care about myself enough yet, or have learned how to care for myself enough yet, but I care enough about the people in my life to pick up the phone and ask for help. And my parents helped me check into this treatment center about 2 weeks later. And I can remember walking into the front doors And when you walk into these front doors, at the end of the hallway is the detox hospital, where you would spend anywhere from 24 hours to 7 days, depending on what you're detoxing from. And they make you surrender your cell phone and everything. And then this nurse comes out of the doorway from the detox hospital and she starts walking towards me. And I knew that as soon as she got to me, my life was going to be completely different. And believe me, I was high when I checked into rehab. Couldn't have made it there if I wasn't. And I was high the second that I picked up my parents to ask for help. I picked the phone to ask my parents for help. I couldn't do that. Life was painful and I didn't know how to be myself. And the nurse gets to me and she asked me to follow her down to the hospital, the detox wing. And I turn back over my shoulder and look back at my parents. And my mom has her arms around my dad, and my dad is crying. And I'd only ever seen my dad cry twice in my life, that day and the day that my mother died. His mother died from an accident. And within the next 72 hours, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, erectile dysfunction, bipolar disorder, drug-induced bipolar disorder, suicidal depression, anxiety disorder, sleep disorder, attention deficit disorder, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. And I was put on a cabinet's worth of medication for life. And my entire idea of what recovery was going to be was completely shattered because I was a walking cliche. I walked in there under this full assumption that I'd spend 28 days away from my substance, get a handle on things, go home, start using, but, take control of it this time. This time it would be different. And thankfully, I got presented with this laundry list of conditions that made it very, very clear to me that if I wasn't willing to change everything about the way that I moved through the world, substances or not, sober or not, I wasn't guaranteed 5 years. And I can remember leaving the doctor's office crushed. I walked back into the dorm room and I picked up the phone. I called my dad and I told him I was leaving. I said, listen, I'm done. I'm out of here. And he could hear how scared I was. And he said, what do you mean you're leaving? You haven't even been there a week. Tell me what's going on. I said, well, I thought all I had to do was get off drugs. And I found I have diabetes and heart disease and all these psychological conditions that I don't understand. And I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I'm leaving. He said, hey, Adam, listen, I hear you. And I don't know what the doctor said to you. I don't know if you have any of these conditions or not, but let's just think about this for a second. Remember that you attended this retreat with Rip Esselstyn. And a lot of the things that you just mentioned, you learned a lot of those are reversible through your diet. And so if there's something about your life that's scary or painful or uncomfortable and you can do something about it, it isn't a problem. It's just a temporary inconvenience. And if there's things about your life that are painful or uncomfortable and you can't do anything about it, it's not a problem. It's just the way things are. And you and your mother and I can work on ways that you can look at it differently and still take charge of your life. And I can remember in that conversation feeling a shift in my dad and I's relationship because he had always kind of been an adversary for me. Completely my fault. I made him that way. I made him out to be that way. But in that moment, he stopped being my adversary and he became my ally. And I wasn't allowed to adopt a plant-based diet in rehab. Unfortunately, they weren't going to allow me to do that. The dietitians knew better. But when I checked out of the rehab hospital after 37 days, I moved into this sober living facility. And in the sober living facility, where I would spend the next 10 months, I was allowed to choose the foods that I ate. And so I walked up to the house manager. This is how it worked. You'd go to the house manager, you would tell him what you wanted them to buy for you at the grocery store, and they get it for you. So I walk up to the house manager, whose last name is literally hamburger, and I tell him, hey, will you buy me greens and beans and grains and fruit and all the plant-based foods? And he said, absolutely, Adam, you tell me what you need to be successful, and you've got it. And so he does. He gets it all for me. And I walk into the kitchen the next morning. I open up the pantry, and there's the oatmeal that I asked for. And somebody put it right next to the Fruity Pebbles. And Fruity Pebbles was my jam. All right. Fruity Pebbles was everything when I was a kid. And so believe me, this was a difficult thing for me to do. In fact, I didn't understand why. If I knew choosing the oatmeal, I could start to take charge of my health and start to reverse my chronic diseases. In fact, I could start to make the positive change that I wanted to see in my life. I also didn't understand that if I chose the Fruity Pebbles, it would start to continue to fuel the diseases and the things that were making my life painful. Why, if I knew these two things, why in the world would I still want the Fruity Pebbles? I didn't understand it. How could this not be a matter of simply intellect and will? Why could I not know what to do, want to do it, end the story? Then I read this amazing book called The Pleasure Trap by Doctors Doug Lisle and Alan Goldhammer. And what they explain in this book is the biological mechanism of compulsion. Why, when we engage in specific behaviors that elicit a specific dopamine response that is outside the bounds of the normal human experience, how that compels us to continue that behavior because our biology believes that we have just statistically increased our likelihood of survival. Remember that humans spent 99% of our evolution trying to outcompete an environment of scarcity. So any behavior involving food that was more calorie dense had to elicit a response that felt more successful, or else we wouldn't be able to determine which foods would keep us alive longer. The thing is, that internal guidance system, that motivational system driven by dopamine, has no understanding what has happened in the modern environment over the last 200 years. It has no understanding that now there are foods that are far more calorie dense than have ever existed, and the ease at which we could repeatedly consume them is easier than we've ever had in our life. Our guidance system has no understanding. And so the reason why I felt so compelled to continue eating the Fruity Pebbles wasn't because I was weak or broken or had no willpower. It was because my body was doing exactly what it was supposed to do, given the way that I'd been living my life and the environment that I'd been living in. I also learned that if I was simply willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable and choose the oats long enough, eventually my dopamine receptors would reset, and eventually choosing the oats wouldn't be a chore. And then one day I'd wake up and I would actually look forward to the oats. I had to be willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable long enough for that process to take place. And someone would say to you, well, why in the world would you want to do that? What's your motivation? And from the outside looking in, a person could say, oh, it's because he's 350 pounds, diabetes, heart disease, and he nearly died from substance abuse. That's his motivation. He doesn't want those things. And while it's true that those things were occurring, that was not my motivation. I do not believe people are motivated by negative consequences. I think what negative consequences do so wonderfully is they highlight loving and meaningful bonds in your life that are being threatened. And it is those loving and meaningful bonds, that is why we're willing to do the hard work. It is the things that matter most to us. It is the things about ourselves and the people that we share our lives with that we want to be a part of and show up for more completely. That's why we do the hard work. I since told myself I was going to focus less on what was the matter with me and more on what matters to me. Use my food choices as a way to connect more to the things that matter most to me in this life. To see my food choices as an act of self-care and self-love, as an affirmation of recovery. If it's about serving and nurturing and taking care of my body, rather than me trying to compete and attack a disease, then I'm in partnership. Then food choices aren't restriction. They're not abstinence. It's about being in alignment with being a caretaker and a steward of a body that wants me to thrive. If I learned anything from surviving suicide, is that my body has never once given up on me. My body has been fighting for me since the day I was born. I have no better partner that wants more for me in my life than the body that I live in. I used to believe it was an adversary that I had to outcompete with exercise and with restrictions so that I could win a battle on a scale. But the truth is, your body is your greatest ally. Food choices are a way of serving that partnership. And within 4 months, I completely reversed my diabetes, my heart disease, and my erectile dysfunction. Within 10 months, I had lost over 100 pounds, and within 1 year, I was off of every single medication I was put on in rehab, including the antidepressants, the mood stabilizers, the sleeping medications, the anxiety medications, and the ADHD medications. Food was an amazing vehicle that allowed me to reconnect to the experience of being alive in a meaningful way. It taught me that the things that were happening to me, the diseases, the obesity, the pain, They weren't a problem. They were a reasonable response to an abnormal way of living. And what if the emotional struggles I was having with weren't some pathology? They weren't some crazy I was dealing with. What if they were a reasonable response to an abnormal way of living? What if these feelings made sense? What if the entire breadth of human emotion is equally valuable and equally meaningful? The frustration, the anger, the temptations, the urges I would feel, what if they were as equally valid as excitement and joy and contentment? What if what if we do not feel because we are broken? What if we feel because we are whole? What if it's all a part of what it means to show up? Food taught me this lesson. Plant-based nutrition is the most profound example that I've ever seen of showing somebody how unbroken they are. For me, I never would have learned this if I hadn't changed what was on my plate. Now, I did not do this journey alone. I will celebrate 9 years of continued recovery in October. I've lost about 180 pounds as of today. I'm the fittest and happiest and healthiest I've ever been in my life. And it's not about feeling that I needed to get to this point in order to be acceptable. I think what's so great about choosing healing foods is they are a statement that you deserve to be healthy in the moment, not when you reverse the disease, not when you lose the weight, but right now you deserve it. You're worth it, and you're choosing to show it to yourself by putting these healing foods on your plate. This journey was not something that I did alone, right? Rip Esselstyn has become a very, very dear friend of mine. And I'm going to tell you that when I met Rip, I was in survival mode. I would put anything into my body, food or drugs, to try and numb myself up and escape life. Survival mode is exhausting. And the things that Rip taught me helped me to stop surviving my day and start living my day. And when I get to live my day, my life has become a very wonderful place to be. I take the opportunity every time I get to thank Rip for the gift that he's given me. More so than that is my mom and my dad. My mom and my dad are my heroes. They are my best friends. They are my mentors, and they've walked this entire journey with me. In fact, this photo was taken by my mom as she and my dad walked me in the doors of rehab. And this photo was taken by my mom as she watched my dad and I run the race in Austin 3 years later. When I say they've walked the entire journey with me, people who think that I did this alone, you're fooling yourselves. The reason why I'm here today is because on those days when I did fall down, my parents picked me up. They showed up with unconditional love and acceptance. They would say to me, essentially, these aren't the exact words, that we love you. We love you whether you're using or you're not. We love you whatever state you're in. And if you ever need us, we will sit with you because we don't want you to be alone or feel alone. And for someone who's struggling and is in that kind of pain that I was in, having someone just be there with them is one of the most profound acts of kindness. To have someone sit there and listen to you. See, the thing is, when you're hurting, listening looks so much like loving that very few people can tell the difference. And my parents were willing to sit there and listen to me, and it's why I reached out to them when I needed them the most. This quote from Joseph Campbell, people are not so much looking for the meaning of life as much as they are the experience of being alive. I didn't fully understand until I went through recovery. But I can explain it to you like this. I like to every now and then show a little before and after photo where I say something like, the simplest change on your fork can make the biggest change of your life. And that's great and that's nifty, and I'll show you that at the end. But that quote relates to the things that I've learned. Number one, I am not broken. I never have been, never will be. All right? Everything that occurred in my life was predictable and reasonable. You want to know why I weighed 350 pounds, had diabetes and heart disease? That's exactly what's supposed to happen when you consume 5,000 calories of fast food on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with me. You want to know why I was using substances to the point where I tried to end my life? It's a very predictable response. When you purposely and also unpurposely choose to avoid your feelings and avoid yourself and hide from the world. It's not my fault. I didn't know it was okay not to know how to do these things. I didn't know it was okay to ask people for help. I didn't know that it was okay to be in pain, but it's a reasonable response. Number two is gratitude. I'm grateful for every single thing that I've gone through. The suicide, the substance abuse, all of it. All of it has taught me what an amazing gift life is and how much I love showing up for the meaningful bonds in my life. And guys, self-love wasn't part of the journey. It's the whole freaking thing. It's everything. And that's why I bring back to that Joseph Campbell quote. People are not so much looking for the meaning of life as much as they are the experience of being alive. It's not this, okay? This is not what I'm talking about. This is fun to show, and it's people like it, and I can put up the quote, people are not, and that the simplest change in your fork can make the most profound change of your life, and that's true, but that's not the experience of being alive that I'm talking about. This is the fact that I get to marry the woman of the love of my life, the fact that I have a relationship with my brother, the fact that I have a tribe of friends that I get to show up and share value with on a regular basis. That when I get up every single day, I know that I have people that value my existence and that I value theirs to the ends of the earth. This is the profound change that I'm talking about. This is what it is to recover. Sobriety simply means don't use. Recovery is a process of becoming whole. And I don't think you can become whole if you leave food off the table. And unfortunately, recovery has left food off the table completely. There has never been a single research study investigating the effects of any diet on early addiction recovery ever done, period. Never. And I find that to be very, very shocking because I look at the journey that happened for me as I went through recovery. Look at how within 1 year of checking into treatment, I entered the sickest I'd ever been and I left the healthiest I had ever been. And I watched people that I went through recovery with go on more medications and gain weight in higher dosages. I've lost 8 friends to overdose and suicide since getting sober. And no one has investigated the effects of one of the most controlled aspects of recovery, which is what you eat and when you eat it. Anybody who spent any time in a rehab hospital knows that every single participant or every single patient eats the same thing at the same time every single day. We never thought to investigate it. Well, I founded a nonprofit called Plant-Based for Positive Change, and we ran the very first controlled trial investigating the effects of plant-based nutrition on early addiction recovery outcomes. My doctors are Doctors Dean and Aisha Sherzai, who wrote the Alzheimer's Solution, and the lead investigator is Tara Kemp, who is the woman in the red hoodie at the bottom, who is doing her PhD work on psychosocial health at NAU. And we are literally going to change the way that we approach addiction recovery forever. We're going to be publishing the study this summer. It is a full microbiome study, it is a full biometric health study, and it is a full psychological and emotional health study. This is the most comprehensive mental health study ever done on food, and I'm so excited to publish it this summer. I want to thank you all for allowing me to share my story with you. You can follow me at Plant-Based Addict on Instagram, and you can follow the study at plantbasedforpositivechange.org. And thank you all, and I hope I left enough time for Q&A. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so I'll let Megan.
I'll go ahead and read them out to you.
Yeah.
Adam, can we support your work? Where do you get funding for the study?
Yeah, so I'll actually show you all. I can share my screen.
You have a GoFundMe right now, right?
I do have a GoFundMe. I have a GoFundMe. Let's see, I can share the link here for you guys. The study is called the Infinite Study, which is named after the treatment center in Austin, Texas, where the research study is taking place. Here's the link. And literally, you guys, if you think about it, no amount is too small to support the study. We have completed the participant part of the study. Right now, the funds that if you choose to donate, will be going to continue to pay the university to complete the data analysis and actually doing the publishing of the research that's already been completed. So we would accept anything anyone's willing to do. really, that would be phenomenal. So thank you for asking.
I'm so amazed by what you're doing. I had no idea that this was even an avenue to explore with the mental health and addiction. So I thank you I'm so glad you set up that GoFundMe as well. I'm going to share that with
Yeah,
my Facebook friends and
thank
various
you.
groups. Does anyone else have any questions for Adam? You did such a thorough presentation.
Thank you so much. And if you want to raise your hand and actually speak, that'd be great. We don't have to do it just in the chat. What do
Right.
my daily meals look like? There's a great question. What do my daily meals look like from Bob? Well, I don't know if you know this by my story, but when I do something I like, I kind of get hooked on it. But I have eaten oatmeal every morning for the last 9 years. All right. So oatmeal has become kind of like a statement for me on how I want to start my day. I love oatmeal. I've been practicing a lot of physique building and CrossFit competing stuff. So I do oatmeal with banana and some cocoa powder and sometimes some blueberries. It varies day to day. Sometimes like some vanilla powder, but it's typically oats. The last few days, though, have been pretty hot where I live, so I've been doing uh, banana ice cream bowls, where it's like a smoothie, but they're really thick, so you got to eat it with a spoon. Yeah, and I absolutely love it. Lunch is typically kind of a higher in the higher protein plant foods. Like I love tofu and tempeh with some sweet potato and lentils and non-starchy veggies. It's pretty simple. The way I see it is this: when I first entered recovery, I told myself, and no one has to do it like this, but I told myself very early on, look, Adam, you're miserable in the kitchen. Cannot cook at all. So if I'm going to make this about making recipes, I'm going to fail pretty quickly. I'm going to get resentful and frustrated. I also don't need to try every recipe that existed in all the plant-based books. What I need to do is commit myself to doing the healing thing long enough so that my body could show me what it's capable of if I repeatedly do the work. So I told myself every morning I'm going to do oats with fruit. For lunch, I'm going to do a rice and bean bowl with veggies, and they were just the frozen veggies that I would heat up with some oil-free, at the time was Engine 2 marinara sauce. They've rebranded to Plant Strong, but there's oil-free marinaras at Whole Foods and lots of other places. A lot of oil-free sauce, some kind of oil-free sauce. And then the same thing that I had for lunch, I would have for dinner. And I did that every day for 10 consecutive months. And I just wanted to remove the idea of I had to go in the kitchen to figure out what I was going to do. The way I see it is this: there's a lot of science on habit building, right? Where you convert a goal-directed action to a habitual response. And the way that you do that is you know ahead of time exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it. So that when I entered the kitchen, it wasn't to figure out what I was going to do, it was to do the action already. I went into the kitchen to make the meal, not to figure out what it was. And by doing that repeatedly, at some point in time, anytime I walked in the kitchen, it was just like, boom, this is what I do. I make this meal. I make oats, or I make a black bean bowl, or I make this. There's a lot of amazing science. There's some pretty cool research on how the basal ganglia, the part of your brain, converts goal-directed action to habitual response. And that's what I was trying to do. I wanted to make it so simple for myself that it was nearly impossible for me to find an excuse not to do it. And so now my meals are still very simple. When I met my now fiance, when we first met, she goes, "Do you always eat bachelor chow?" It was like, 'cause it would be like 3 ingredients. She's like, "Is everything just sweet potatoes and lentils and like broccoli? I mean, don't you like spice it up at all?" And so now we have, she's an amazing cook. So we do these great soups. She makes an amazing, unbelievable minestrone and all this other stuff. But, I typically eat very, very starch-based foods. I love starches. Do I ever have any cheat meals? I'm an ethical vegan, so I don't eat meat, eggs, or dairy ever. And that's not about, again, it's not about abstaining from those. It's about, what I like to say is I can eat whatever I want whenever I want. But I have very specific priorities and values for how I want to show up. And choices aren't about whether they're healthy or unhealthy, right or wrong, good or bad. They're either aligned with those values and priorities or they're not. And this has really helped me to show up the way I want to. I'm not one of those abolitionist vegans. In fact, I would rather 1 million people eat 90% plants than have another 1,000 perfect vegans on the planet. But for me, that's not something I'm going to do. It's a very strong core value of mine that it's a no matter what, I'll never do that. But in terms of cheat meals, Megan and I were talking about how on my birthday, right, what I do is I get up every morning and I eat a whole pint of vegan ice cream. And the thing is that one meal out of the 1,000 meals that I eat a year is never going to be the problem, ever. It's never going to be what causes me to get sick. However, 99% of the time, I'm very aligned with my values and priorities. I don't need to get 100% right. I don't need to be perfect, but I do need to be 100% committed to acting in alignment with my values 90% of the time or greater. I want to get an A. And one of the things I'm very passionate about in recovery is this idea of perfectionism. I'm a huge proponent of not being that way, right? The traditional AA model says your problem is drugs, therefore abstain from drugs perfectly for as long as possible, and that's the metric of success. And substance abuse doesn't work that way. That's a dependency model, and dependency and addiction are two completely different things. You can be dependent on something chemically and not be addicted. What addiction really is, at its core, is about not wanting to be present in your life because your life has become too painful a place to be. And when we give the power to the substance, then we're treating the substance. We're not treating the human who's in pain. And so for me, I don't need to be perfect, and I'm never going to be. And in fact, how can we expect to feel safe doing anything if anything less than perfect is considered a failure? I bring that into my practice of sobriety and recovery. I bring that into my practice with food. And I think it's actually better. I want people to know that, like, I don't do this perfectly, but I do it really well most of the time. And if you do it really well most of the time, you're going to see some amazing things happen for you. Do I ever ingest any sweeteners, i.e. honey? Not honey, not for the B reason. The sweeteners I've used have been date paste. I really like, and sometimes I'll just do brown sugar. But I rarely use sweeteners. It's only if I'm doing like a cake for someone's birthday or something like that. I mean, it might be 2-3 times a year that I ever use it.
Would you rather
Yeah.
me read the questions out to you? I was planning on doing that, but if you prefer,
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm gonna scroll back up because we missed one. I just made a blend of strawberries, a fresh peach, almond milk, and walnuts. Ran out of frozen bananas, but it was good. 4 delicious ingredients. Oh, I guess that wasn't a question. I thought I was gonna leave it. That does sound good.
Yeah.
Next question. When you had type 2 diabetes, were you on medication or medicine?
Yeah, I was on 2,000 milligrams of oral medication, which is called metformin. And for those of you who, I don't know, I know you guys have Dr. Neil Barnard coming up, but it's really important to understand about diabetes and insulin resistance, because that's now what I do. As I work with my 2 best friends, Robbie Barbero and Dr. Cyrus Kambata, with Mastering Diabetes. And what we do is we help people reverse insulin resistance. There's a lot of stories being told out there about diabetes and insulin resistance, that insulin resistance is caused by sugar, or insulin resistance is caused by too much insulin. And these are fundamentally untrue statements. The number one thing you can do to increase your insulin resistance is reduce your dietary fat consumption. Excess dietary fat is the cause of insulin resistance. It's fundamentally, it's just basic fundamental nutritional biochemistry. And so what I did was I reduced my dietary fat to less than 15% of my total calories per day. And when you do that, you give yourself the opportunity to clear excess lipids from within tissues that are not designed to store large quantities of fatty acids. And you increase the signaling capability between your insulin receptors and your insulin, which allows for the uptake of glucose in the tissues. I love talking about insulin resistance. I could talk about it all day. I don't want to take up too much time because I know there's some more questions. But It is not a carbohydrate problem. Carbohydrate is the solution.
PBNSG actually we have specialized groups where our members have access each month, and one of our groups is diabetes with a specialist in diabetes.
Yeah,
When I heard you talk about that, it's all very familiar to me because I've spoken to
yeah.
Anne so much, our diabetes host. Back to the questions. Dr. Esselstein is not a big proponent of nuts. Do you eat saturated fats from nuts? Do you eat nuts?
Oh, so he's not a proponent of nuts due to the high saturated fat. Do I
Yeah,
eat nuts?
I spelled do wrong.
Oh
Sorry
yeah,
about that.
that's
I
okay.
meant
So I
DUE.
think it's important. I think it's important to understand that context matters. Okay, Dr. Esselstyn, his work is on heart disease reversal. All right, so for someone who has heart disease, which is a form of insulin resistance, right? It's the excess accumulation of fatty acids inside the vasculature and inside the heart. What you need to do is you need to be very specific about how to reverse that specific condition. And in order to do that, you have to be very aware of your dietary fat consumption and very aware of your saturated fat consumption. So for that protocol, avoiding overt fats as much as possible will be a huge benefit. Now, there's a difference between a diet that reverses and a diet that prevents. So for myself, I've lived almost 8 years now in a very highly insulin sensitive state where I've been in complete reversal of my heart disease, my diabetes, all of that. So, and I'm also a very active individual. I'm at the gym 6 times a week, an hour a day. I go hiking, I do all these things. So my body can tolerate and metabolize a slightly higher amount of dietary fat than the Esselstyn program. So Dr. Esselstyn his program is very in alignment with mastering diabetes. So typically around 10 to 15% of the calories per day are coming from fat. I'm closer to 20 or 25%. I do eat nuts and seeds. I typically eat seeds more than nuts, but it's still not a lot. Very, very, very limited amount. Humans by nature are just not designed to eat large quantities of fat a lot of the time for long periods of time. That's just not how we function best. So high in carbohydrate, high in fiber, reduce your dietary fat, and you will see your health benefit in multiple ways.
Where will your research be published? If you said
Yeah.
already, I'm sorry.
So we've submitted an abstract. Actually, we'll be presenting, we're not on the main stage or on the stage, but we will be showing our research at the American College of Lifestyle Medicine Conference this year. We're going to be publishing in the Journal of American Medicine. So JAMA will be publishing in most of the medical journals. We have the opportunity to write about 10 different research papers from this study. There's so many different components and cofactors that allow us to write research papers from this study for years. We're really excited about it, and obviously we'll let you know. I have a book in the works right now right now the working title is The Addiction Diet. But it's about the research study. It's also about my story. That will hopefully be published within the next year or so. We've been working really hard on it. Yeah, so that's, you'll see, you'll hear about it. That's the goal, is for everyone to hear about it.
Okay. Dr. Longo wrote the book on longevity diet, focused on the fasting mimicking diet. Are you a proponent of intermittent fasting?
Here's the thing. I think all protocols are fantastic when appropriate, right? So I don't think that medicine is the enemy of nutrition, and I don't think that nutrition is the enemy of medicine. I don't think that fasting is the enemy of medicine, or that medicine is the enemy of fasting. I don't think that supplements and all this stuff. I think that they're all phenomenal tools when appropriate, right? So someone who's very insulin resistant, intermittent fasting is a fantastic thing. It's a fantastic way to optimize the metabolizing of excess fatty acids in a fasting state, because that's what will happen. For myself, as an athlete who has to consume around 3,000 calories a day, intermittent fasting just makes life harder for me. So I typically don't do intermittent fasting. I had been doing intermittent fasting for a while. Here's what I like to tell people, all right? Intermittent fasting is great. It will not fix everything for you. What you need to do first is you need to look at the 5 foundations of health, right? You need to get an appropriate diet. You need to get an appropriate amount of sunshine. You need to get an appropriate amount of water, an appropriate amount of movement, right? And an appropriate amount of healing sleep. When you've addressed these 5 things, if there's still issues going on, then think about intermittent fasting, then think about like red lighting and all these other, things, the novelties. But the answer to health is very obvious, and it's been very obvious for a very, very long time. And we just act like it's not this complex code that only a few people have the answers to. And the answer lies in like an intermittent fasting protocol or something like that. It's more healing foods, more fresh air and sunshine, more restorative sleep, more joyous movement, and more meaningful connections with people in your community. This is the foundation. If you do this, and if you get this right, more than likely it's going to give you the profound change you're looking for. But intermittent fasting works. It's fantastic. But you have to also address these things or it's not going to be a cure-all.
Okay. What supplements do you take, if any?
Yeah, I take B12, and I take 3,000 micrograms once a week. I take D3, and I take 2,000 international units once a day. I take omega-3 in the form of DHA and EPA from algae. And the only other supplement that I take every now and then is a K2 supplement, which I take. It's a supplement called Complement Plus, and it's all the essential nutrients for a vegan diet that can optimize your diet. It's magnesium, selenium, iodine, DHA, EPA, K2, B12, and D3. The 3 that you will definitely want to take, or that I recommend people doing, is B12 and D3 because you can't get it from food, and then DHA and EPA because there's a certain percentage of the population that just has a very difficult time converting the ALA omega-3s to DHA and EPA. What people don't understand is that they think that they have low omega-3 levels because they're not getting enough omega-3. When really what's happening is they have an unhealthy ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Because omega-6 and omega-3, they compete for the same conversion pathway. And when your ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is unfavorable, it's very difficult for these omega-3s to convert in the body. And really the best thing you can do is reduce your omega-6 consumption, which most of you are doing if you're living this lifestyle. That's reducing your oils and saturated fats from animals. And again, if you just want to be sure, the number one thing you can do is just take a supplement and not worry about it. And there's too much evidence on brain health and cognitive longevity with DHA and EPA supplements. And so I just don't want to play. If I don't have to play a guessing game, I don't want to play that game. If it doesn't have to be a game of chance, why would I want to play that game? So I'm going to take that supplement.
Okay. Do you use protein powder in your smoothies?
I do. I use protein powder. And the reason for that is because as a very, very high level physique, I do physique building and competitive athlete, the amount of protein requirement is a lot higher for me for muscle repair. And so for me to make it easier on me, I supplement with a protein powder called VEDGE, VEDGE. It's a company founded by my friend Nimai Delgado, who maybe you all recognize from the Game Changers. But the average person doesn't need to worry about protein powder. There's a simple equation you can do. The average American who goes out and is active needs about 0.8 grams of protein for every kilogram of body weight. If you're an athlete, and be honest with yourself, if you're actually an athlete, you need about 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. Here's the interesting thing. There's a lot of research that was done, and this is about why you don't have to obsess about protein. If you get more than 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, it does no added benefit. You do not benefit by getting as much protein as possible. You just need to know how much you need and then make that a target. That's it. So for my body weight, I weigh about 75 pounds, right? So in order to figure that out, I simply divide 75 by 2.2, that's 34, right? And then I multiply that.
You weigh 175 pounds, Adam?
Yeah, so sorry, 175 pounds. I divide that by 2.2 and I get 79.5 kilograms, all right? So that multiplied by 1.2, I just need to get 95 grams of protein a day. That's nothing. That's so simple to do on a 3,000 calorie diet.
Okay. Is there a certain brand, did you say, of your protein powder in case anyone wants to know?
Yeah, it's veg. So VEDGE, veg nutrition.
Okay. I'm scrolling back in case I miss any questions. What did you find was the most helpful for overcoming the mental health issues that led to your addictions? Whole food, plant-based, lifestyle therapy, medications, exercise, combination of everything?
Combination of all of it. Yeah. 100% self-compassion work was hugely important for me. That there's a great book called Self-Compassion Workbook by a self-compassion researcher named Kristen Neff. And it's a phenomenal workbook, and I like to do it every now and then. I've done it a few times since getting sober. Um, and I think that, like I've said, self-love is really the journey that everyone is working towards. That at the end of the day, I had to come to the understanding that I've never hated something enough to start caring about it and taking care of it. Right? That I really had to come to understand why I care about myself enough to want to care for myself. And that was a lot of internal work. I did a lot of therapy. I did a lot of group therapy. And it's really about holding yourself to the standard of being human. That to struggle is to be human. So to be quote unquote not normal is to be a normal human, right? And that most of the things that we deal with, the anxiety, the depression, the anger, the frustration, 99% of the time, they make complete sense. They're very predictable, they're very reasonable. And once we can identify why they make sense, then we can remove the idea that this is pathology, that this is crazy, and that rather it's a reasonable response to life. And that we can see that we can make the change we need to better understand how we can live with this, or how we can make changes to, move through it.
Okay. All right. There's 4 more messages keep coming in. I it moves my scroll. Do you ever have oh, we already read that one. Do you ever have occasional glass of wine? We spoke about that. I find that the protein powders are very high in sodium and usually contain stevia. Does yours have high amounts of both?
Actually, there's this great study that was done on the 80 top protein powder brands, and they were testing them for quality control and quality of ingredients. And so the number one was veg. It is sweetened, and I'm not sure about the sodium, but here's the thing, right? What we need to understand is that sodium isn't inherently bad, right? We can't make these blank statements like sugar is bad, or fat is bad, or sodium is bad, or sweeteners are bad. It's the amount, the frequency that we consume it, right? How much and how often are we consuming? A person who puts a tablespoon of sugar in their coffee in the morning and eats an entirely low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet is not going to be made sick by the tablespoon of sugar, right? So the sweetener that's in the protein powder, or the sodium that's in the protein powder, for me as an athlete, the amount that I sweat is probably protecting me from muscle soreness to a huge degree, but it's not pushing me over the edge. I'm still not consuming an excess amount of sodium.
Okay. I can't seem to find any questions that came in that I missed with the scroll.
I think that was it.
Go ahead. Did I miss one?
No, I think that was all of them.
Yeah. Now, also, those that are here, if you think of a question later on, I always tell our guests, I'm the queen of thinking of something. Oh, I should have asked. If you think of anything, email me, Megan@pbnsg.org, and then I will email Adam to find the answer. That's definitely not a problem. Or I'm sure if you go to Adam's website, I'm sure you have a contact link where they can ask you questions.
I do, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put the link to my website in there.
I actually typed your website up on the top along with your Facebook and your Instagram.
Fantastic.
We got another message that just popped in. Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm actually so excited to go tell my husband all about your presentation and
thank you.
What you're doing and your recovery and your bio and all that. I mean, it's amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation tonight. I hope our guests did. I'm sure they did. And many more will be viewing it later tonight in their portal or later tomorrow. Thank you, Adam, for being with us. I'm so excited, and congratulations on this life.
Thank you so much.
Obviously something to be so proud of, especially now the way you're helping other people.
My pleasure, really. And thank you all for being here. One last thing I'll say to everyone that's still here is that, it's really important to be there. Like I mentioned, I've lost a good number of friends to suicide and overdose. And these are people who desperately were trying to recover their lives. And they were sold a story that they were the problem, that once an addict, always an addict, that, that they're the problem. They have to constantly be aware of how they cannot deal with life, and how if they don't commit themselves to a program, that they can reaffirm this belief that they're the broken part, that they'll never succeed. And I believe that this wears people down. I think it's important to know that addicts are not criminals, they're humans in pain. Depressed people are not sick, they are humans in pain. Suicidal people are not crazy, they are humans in pain. And maybe if we stop defining people by what they struggle with, it will be easier for us to listen to their needs. And then maybe we'll see that their needs make sense. We'll see that these are people who desperately want to reconnect to a life that's meaningful, and that the start of that reconnection is simply another human who's willing to listen to them. So that's my last message. I want to leave you all with that. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. You too.
I really
Take
appreciate it. I'll
care.
follow up with you later, and thank you. And thank you everybody for being here tonight. And I'll see you in August for our Anthony Evans event. Have a great day.
Take care.